Uh, so the topic of our webinar today is scaling digital first hiring using Sense and Avionte. We're going to be focusing today specifically on a case study with Penmac, which is one of our largest customers, and getting sort of just under the hood on how they implemented Sense, what are some of the results they've seen, what are some landmines to avoid, what are some guidance that they have. And I'm delighted to have Sara Corman with me. Sara, thank you so much for joining me on the webinar this morning. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself quickly to our audience, I would appreciate it.
Sure, yeah, I'm the marketing director for Penmac Staffing, and I have been with Penmac since October 2007 when I joined the team as a marketing assistant, doing primarily graphic design and writing and some things like that. And so, placing a lot of classified ads and doing some old school grassroots stuff back in the day, and have been here ever since. And I've actually led the team just 6 months after I started, that my predecessor left. So yeah, I've been here through a lot of growth and changes over the last 13 years, and it's just really exciting, the kind of tools that we're able to use today, things I never would have dreamed about 13, 14 years ago. So it's really exciting to be here and share all that with you guys.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense and started the company, well, going on 6 years now. But before I did that, I ran staffing companies for 15 years, two different companies, one in Seattle, one here in the Silicon Valley. So I grew up in the industry, very much come from your world. And again, just like Sara, happy to take any questions as we go along today. Also, for those of you who do not know Sense, which I'm hoping is a diminishingly small number of people at this point, I will give you guys a quick introduction. Like I said, we started out about 5.5, 6 years ago with the singular mission to build the first system of engagement that was designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed really true to that mission so far. We currently have over 500 customers, and every single one of them is a staffing firm. We also did a lot of the heavy lifting right up front by building a lot of ATS integrations, plumbing with some other systems, adding enterprise security features like permissioning, like the idea to make the ability to kind of have you do suppression or copy workflows across different branch offices. And that proof is now in the pudding. We work with 6 of the 10 largest staffing companies in the US today. These are companies that you all know, companies like Adecco and Staffmark and Inside Global and so on and so forth. And also a third of the largest staffing companies in the US. These are companies defined by SIA every single year as companies with over $100 million in revenue. We're funded by Accel Partners and Google Ventures, so some of the best blue chip investors you can hope to have. And our business hinges on 3 different pillars: growth, retention, and automation. The idea behind growth is how can we enable you to have more candidates in the top of your funnel, make more placements, add to your top line. Retention talks about helping you make more money from the people you already have, reducing attrition, increasing loyalty, increasing redeployment, so you can actually increase your profitability or your bottom line. And then automation talks about taking busy work away from your recruiters, stuff that there's, any time that they're spending not talking to a human being, whether it is a client or a customer, is something that we look to automate using AI and using automation. So those are the 3 pillars that Sense stands on, and that's a little bit of an overview about our company. And Sara, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about Penmac as well.
Sure, yes, we were founded here in Springfield, Missouri in 1988, so just over 33, 34 years ago, by Patty Penny, who now serves as our chairwoman of the board. Our CEO is Tim Massey. He's an industry veteran, joined the team about 7 years ago, and our president is Paula Adams, who is Patty's daughter, actually. We became employee-owned. We're America's largest 100% employee-owned staffing company in 2010. Patty basically and the family basically gifted the company to all of us employees, which is just an amazing opportunity for all of us. Today we have 32 offices in 8 states. You can see on the map there, primarily in the center of the country, a little bit to the north and east as well. We primarily serve about 80% light industrial, manufacturing, warehouse kind of clients. We also do some clerical, some transportation staffing for drivers, a little hospitality for different resorts and in the tourism industry. And then we have a growing education division that does substitute teacher staffing and other staffing for school districts specifically. So that's our newest vertical, and has been growing steadily for the last 5 or 6 years. We had a little bit of a slower year last year, like most people did, about 20,000 W-2s in 2020. We have about 150 internal team members, about 50 of us here at corporate at the headquarters here in Springfield. So yeah, that's the Penmac in a nutshell.
That's amazing. I guess I did not know that you were 100% employee owned. That's
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah, and includes all of our temporary staff too can qualify if they work with us and meet the vesting requirements. So we have associates out in the field that are also employee owners.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely unusual.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. And to our viewers and listeners today, I also wanted to spend a minute telling you about our relationship with Avionte and how quickly it has grown. This is probably the one partnership we have been most excited about. We only started talking to Avionte in 2019. That's when we sort of partnered on a pilot. Hey, let's see how this goes with a couple of customers. And because we started hearing great things from those early adopters, in 2020, which is just last year, we launched a full integration. Now, what I mean by that is we are probably one of the only products that integrates with Avionte Classic, which is both self-hosted as well as Avionte hosted, and Avionte Bold. And we'll obviously continue to integrate with any new versions that Avionte comes up in the future. So we have a very robust partnership, and that that manifested itself into a really quick adoption by several of Avionte users. Just in the last 12 to 15 months, I mean, that's how quickly this has gone. We now have about 97 common customers. We're really knocking on the door of that magical 100 number here. So if you think about it, we've added more than one Avionte customer, almost 2 Avionte customers every single week for the past year or so. So really proud of where this partnership is going. Penmac obviously was one of the early adopters who believed in the product, way back, and they've come a long way with everything that they're doing with the product. But this is a small laundry list of, some of Avionte's customers that use Sense today. As you can see, this is very much a partial list. There are only about 30, 35 customers on this slide. But, like I said, just really proud of working with some of Avionte's largest customers and hoping that we have an impact on their business. All right, so let's get to the meat of the conversation today. The conversation today is mainly Sara's voice, if you will. I mean, I'm going to try and shut up as much as I can, because really what we wanted to do for everybody who's listening is have you listen to sort of an under the hood story on what it takes to implement something like Sense. Why do people even purchase Sense? What do they do with it? What are some of the results and analytics that come out of it? So over the next 30 minutes or so, that's what Sara and I are going to talk a lot about. Again, we would absolutely invite questions, and no question is taboo or off the table. If you wanted to ask something really detailed about, hey, can we do this one exact thing? Or we have a process that goes like this. What do you think about how this process can be automated? Please absolutely fire away at us. So with that, Sara, you're probably I've obviously followed this very closely, but you're the best person to talk about how our partnership started, when it started, and where it is today. So I'll let you kick us off.
Sure. We had been an Avionte client since 2011, of course, on Classic at that point, and we had planned to make the switch to Bold, and we were pushed back a little bit by the pandemic last year and a few different things. But in early October last year, we made the switch to Bold, transitioned our whole team, and right around at that same time, I think within weeks we added Sense to that toolbox strictly because of that integration with fully integrated with Bold, and it was so easy to launch it at the same time as we were launching this new tool as well. We had previously used a different texting platform, but it was not integrated with Classic or Bold. And it was helpful to have a tool to be able to send text messages, but it did not have all the features and integrations that we found with Sense. And of course, it was also missing the Engage tool, which has been extremely valuable. So we've launched the engagement messaging in October, right after we switched to Bold, and have just last month also launched ChatBot, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. But with Engage, we've got about 10 journeys that are running right now, accompanying about 30 different touch points. We send a lot of messages, get a lot of messages back too. Based on the Sense analytics, about 2,400 of our placements this year have been influenced somehow by Sense. They've been messaged or had some sort of interaction via Sense, and about 9,000 redeploys, which is huge. I definitely think that has been an advantage as well, of being able to communicate and keep that conversation going with existing applicants or existing candidates. So yeah, I think really that integration and being able to know that what happens in Sense is going to show up as activities in Bold, and have the information accessible to the whole team was really key. And having that quick integration where data goes back and forth quickly, and there's no huge delay, and our team, our branches really operate on a team model where everybody is kind of working on the same orders and for the same clients. So to be able to see, oh, this person's already been they're ready to go to this client, I can see it all in Sense or all in Bold wherever I happen to be working, has been really helpful. And having that, the documentation, our HR team of course loves having the documentation of all those conversations right there in Bold, and not having to go to another platform to find that information. So yeah, that integration has really been huge.
Yeah, Sarah, I can't tell you how happy this makes me to hear this. We talk to customers day in and day out, where we spend some time explaining to them that if Sense was even able to influence 10 new placements for them, it'll pay back for itself. And to hear you say here that we might have had a role in influencing over 2,000 placements, that's exactly what we talk to all of our customers about, in terms of us building the product very much linked to direct and hard ROI. So I know we will make the recruiters more efficient and recruiters more productive and processes more productive, but that's not why you should be buying Sense. You should be buying Sense because you will actually have an impact on both your top line and bottom line. So I appreciate that. And, with that, I'm going to start with just asking the audience really quickly, a question. What is important to you, as you think about your businesses, what is important to you when you're searching for an automation tool? I mean, what would be that top one, two, or three things, that you would look for? So, we're going to just have you guys, participate with us in this quick poll so we can sort of center our conversation around what is more important to you. But even as we do that, Sarah, I'll keep moving on. I know you just talked about the fact that integration with Avionte Bold was super important to you, but maybe step back for a second and tell us what you had before you had Sense, and just take a moment to walk us through that in a little bit more detail on why did you choose Sense? What else did you look at? Why was automation important to you, in your own words?
Sure. Like I said, the tool before was not integrated at all. So it stood separately from Avionte completely. So, our users were having to go back and forth between two different platforms. There was a tool where they could, pull up a search in Avionte and pull those numbers in and send them mass messages, but it was tedious. It was kind of clunky and didn't get used as much as it should, because it just kind of took a little longer to do than was necessary. So just on the messaging side alone, just having that integration and being able to quickly message people and know it's going to go back to Bold and have that record there was super important. And then with the Engage tool, that was really what set Sense apart, as far as on the automation side, we were able to take a lot of the tedious phone calls and the check-ins that were either taking a lot of time to do or just weren't happening. They should have been happening and they just weren't happening because staffing people were too busy filling the new orders to follow up with the new placements, a week or two into their assignment to see how they were going. So by using the Engage tool to be able to schedule out those messages, those check-in messages, to maybe people who are on a new assignment, or remind them about payroll, or ask questions, just check in to see if they have any questions, has been huge. It's been a huge advantage to be able to check in on those operational tasks and make sure they're happening, and get ahead of any problems that might arise with our temporary staff. That's been huge. And what the branch really loves about it is that it automates those initial messages. They get that, hey, how did your first day go, on their start date, but then that response, if somebody responds, it goes straight to that branch user, those branch accounts, so they can see and reply individually with a personal message, ask questions, ask anything unique to that situation. So while it sounds kind of impersonal when you talk about automation, the way that this tool works, it really just enables more personal connection and more conversation with our staff and the temp people in the field, because it makes that conversation start automatically, but then you keep that personal connection by the staffing specialist being able to respond individually and answer any concerns as those messages are sent out over the first week or month or however long of their of those assignments. So that's been a huge advantage, and Engage definitely has made all that easy, both on the operational side, on the recruitment side. There's several ways that we use that tool to just keep things flowing while also keeping the personal connection.
Yeah, Sarah, while you were saying this, I was sitting here thinking that, even if some of these things were happening before, like even if people were picking up the phone and calling or actually doing those touch points, they probably were not recording that in Avionte, because who's going to make the phone call and then immediately say, let me just like add all this information in, especially if you have 30 phone calls to make, you'd rather just go boom, 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 boom. So the fact that it just happens automatically.
Definitely. The fact that it's logged is huge. And the fact that it's most of the messages we send, touch points we send, are SMS based, are text messages. And we find we get a much higher response to those than to phone calls, and definitely, to emails as well. We do use some email touch points, but yeah, having to be able to get in front of people with that text message and get that whole conversation logged has been a huge advantage. And yeah, the other thing we do is when we survey our associates, we survey clients as well. And when we get that feedback, that's something that the branches get alerted on, that they can, if it's a negative feedback, they can follow up immediately. If it's a positive feedback, they get to see that information as well. And then we also ask those positive feedback, we follow up and ask them to leave a review on Indeed or Google, or wherever it might be, so we can hopefully drive some more reviews that way too. But just to get that immediate feedback from clients, from associates, from across the board, at the beginning of the relationship and throughout it as well, has been really valuable to address some of those problems before somebody can get onto a Google and leave a bad review. It gives us a chance to get ahead of it. So all that has been great, and it frees the branches up from having to think about it and stay on top of it, but it brings it to their attention when it needs attention.
You brought up two really awesome things that I talk about all the time, but they're worth repeating. One is absolutely the fact that most people forget that you can also use Sense to do feedback and reviews from your customers. Everybody just starts thinking of it as a talent management platform, and fair enough, which it is, but it's also marketing automation. You could reach out to all of your clients, you could reach out to all of your alumni if that's what you wanted. So I'm glad you brought that up, that you can actually do that. And the second thing that you said, and I've used this a lot, that you want to catch reviews and fix problems for people before they become a festering issue, because that's when they're going to leave that scathing sort of 1-star review on Glassdoor or something that's going to be there forever for people to see. And we all know our mentality. We're going to look at the negative reviews and say, oh, there's something wrong going on here. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So Sara, I'm going to follow this up with a question that probably gets asked the most, right? This is the biggest thing that any sort of new customer has to worry about from a change management standpoint. Hey, is this a really tedious implementation process? Is this going to take months? Am I going to have to change the way I do business? So I mean, the software can look amazing in a presentation, and then you're like, yes, but really, do I have to spend 6 months implementing this? So if you can walk us through what your implementation process was like, any feedback you might have for us, but at the same time, if there are any concerns that you can allay for some of the people on the call, that would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah. And this is might sound like hyperbole, and Pankaj did not pay me to say this, but this Sense implementation process was definitely the smoothest we've ever had with any sort of technology tool. They have the process down to a science. And our implementation support rep was amazing. We met with him weekly. The process internally was managed by myself, and then Troy, who is our corporate trainer, who knows, of course, all the ins and outs of the software and how the branches work. And so he knows, and he's worked in branches for years. So he, between the two of us, we kind of worked with Zach, our implementation manager, and he did a fantastic job. We met weekly. He walked us through the process every time. We watched him build a journey. He walked us through the process of building a journey. We did multiple ones to make sure we were kind of covering how everything worked, how the data fields worked, how the scheduling worked. I felt very confident, by the time we got through that implementation, I knew how to build a journey and how it worked. And so, it was really a very smooth and easy transition. And then also the training that they provided for our branch users was excellent. There, multiple webinars, and they were available for any questions that they might have as well. And so yeah, through the implementation process was awesome. And then even ongoing, we have had weekly for a while, and now we're moved to bi-weekly meetings with our customer support rep now, who's awesome and answers any questions that might come up, or just kind of keeps us on top of making sure we're using the tool to its most effective advantage, and continuing to add. We didn't try to do everything all at once. We've kind of slowly over the months built out more and more journeys as we learned more about what worked best for our audience. And so to have that support from our support rep throughout this whole process has been awesome, and really a good resource to make sure we're not missing something, or if anything new is available, or if there's any new features or anything like that, we're staying on top of that. So yeah, it's definitely important to have somebody on your internal team that is kind of the champion for Sense on your team, and can help with your branches if they have any questions, and explain how it's all going to roll out. And it's not something, this is a cliche, but you will get out of it what you put into it, of course. So as an ongoing basis, you have to stay on top of it. It doesn't take a ton of time, but you do have to have somebody on a daily or weekly basis getting into Sense and looking at the analytics, and thinking about new ways to build new journeys, and making adjustments as things come in. We're still, even this week, we're making adjustments to some of the journeys we built way back in October, just fine tuning things. So it does take a little time, and you have to invest some energy and creativity into getting it to work well. But Sense has the support for you all along the way to make sure that you know what you're doing, and you're not kind of hanging out there like, oh, I'm not sure how to do this, or is this even possible. They will make sure that your ideas, or what you need, or any problems that might arise, which have been extremely rare, are addressed quickly. So it's been a great process.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, Sarah. I'm going to throw a little bit more detail on a couple of things you mentioned. So one of the things that you mentioned about, you got on a call with our implementation team and built out some of the journeys together. We're now calling that a co-building exercise, and we're doing that literally with every single customer. So the idea is, we're there every step of the way while you are becoming a master of the platform. I can't tell you how many of our customers now know more about Sense than sometimes our own team. But that's because that's how we train them, right? We're basically doing this co-building thing and saying, well, you click here, you do this, you do that, and boom, just like that, you have a journey. So that's one. And the second thing that you said, also super uncanny, because I use that all the time, is when I tell customers that don't try and boil the ocean on day one. Pick up your top 3-4 touch points that you want to automate them, see the data coming back in, then automate 5 more, and then automate 5 more. And before you know it, in a few weeks, you'll have your entire sort of life cycle and your recruiting process completely automated. And Sarah, the one thing I would add is we just got back the poll results from the last poll.
Okay.
And I think you're very much spot on. The number one answer there, 33% of the people said the thing that's most important to them is seamless integration, that you touched upon a lot. And then the next 3 responses were almost in the same percentage, 22%, 17, and 17, which was user adoption, easy implementation, and ability to scale. And funny enough, this gets me all the time. The response that the thing that the least number of people said was important was cost. So only 11% of the people said that cost would be their number one criteria. So that's awesome. And before we move on, Sarah, somebody had a question for you from the last slide. The question they had was, what type of surveys are you sending out to clients using Sense?
Yeah, we actually have kind of, again, been rolling those out slowly. And we have specifically one client that we're working with that we've got a journey set up specifically for them that we're hoping to roll out to other clients. But basically their supervisors that our people are reporting to, they're getting email alerts about who's reporting to them, who's on the new assignment. And then I think right now it's a first day check-in. It's just a quick little, how would you rate so-and-so's performance? It's an email that goes out, I think 24 hours or 48 hours after the start date. And then again, a week later, and then after a month, we kind of do a more, the longer we get down the timeline, we do a more in-depth survey about how that placement is working out. and get feedback along the way from that supervisor. And it goes actually to the specific supervisor they're reporting to, not, not somebody higher up, or, the HR manager, whoever it might be, although it could do that. But that client really likes that the supervisor who is actually working with that person gets to give feedback on how that performance is going. And then that gives us some feedback that we can coach that associate on. So that's kind of a more specific case for that one client. And we're, like I said, we're hoping to roll it out to more generally. They're just kind of general NPS kind of surveys that we might send out occasionally. Those aren't necessarily automated or triggered on any specific day, but we'll kind of do a quarterly sort of just check-in survey with all the active clients just to get general feedback. And that's really for corporate purposes, to kind of do a kind of a temp check on different branches and see if there's any issues that might be coming up. Those we aren't necessarily, geared off new assignments or anything like that. Those are just more general surveys of all our clients, just check-ins from corporate to see how things are going.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to do a quick audience poll again and just ask everybody, what's the top challenge you're facing today in the talent landscape? So if you wouldn't mind giving us your feedback, we would appreciate it. And while everybody's doing that, Sarah, there's another question that came in, but I will address this. This is a question that said, we're actually in the process of implementing Sense now. We're still on Avionte Classic. We're able to send, receive messages in Sense, but are not seeing them in Avionte. Can you confirm where these messages would show up? I assume the messages section, but I could be wrong. So first of all, I think those messages will show up under the notes section where the candidate notes are. That's where they write down, but I will promise that Lauren will make a note of this question and we'll make sure that your implementation manager gets back to you and also sort of, tells you exactly where these messages would show up and perhaps even just walk you through it. So, leave that with us. All right, so I'm really interested in sort of seeing what this poll brings us to and what are some of the top challenges people talk about today. I can tell you this, that we have heard a lot about, Sarah, we've heard a lot now about people saying that there are some companies who find themselves in a feast and others who find themselves in a famine. So by famine I mean they're putting out a job, nobody's applying. Well, there you have it, skill shortages. It's unbelievable that we were just talking about it. And then there are very few companies that are saying that they're actually also in a feast where they're sending out a message and 500 people are applying, and they need to figure out how to quickly screen them and get to the 10 people who are really worth talking to. So anyway, my point is, you can see this right on the screen, but the skill shortage seems to be one of the biggest challenges. How have you used automation, to overcome this and some of the other challenges today? Like, what are some of your big challenges and how are you using automation to overcome those?
Yeah, that's definitely also our biggest challenge, is that skill shortage and just shortage of applicants and people that are willing to go to work. So really our conversation internally has been, how can we set ourselves apart from the other hundreds of employers in our markets, whether that's other staffing companies or other industries that are hiring on their own. And a lot of that is that personal connection, and that you can come to Penmac and get help finding a job. You can apply once and get be matched with jobs at dozens of places. But what sets us apart there even more, we're hoping, is that communication, that personal relationship, and that engagement, that you're not going to apply with us and then not hear anything for a week or ever, or once you get sent out on that job, that you're not going to hear from us again. That we want to make sure we're keeping that connection active, and that people feel like we're here to help them and just provide excellent customer service, because that's what employees deserve and are needing today, is that engagement, to make sure that they are feeling appreciated and have a purpose and are doing make sure that we know that they're valuable. And so Sense is part of that, and that we, like I said, with those check-in messages, with the and I'll talk more about with our chatbot what we're doing with new applicants as well later, but with people that we're sending out on assignments, because we're sending those first day check-ins, those 1 week check-ins, those reminders about payroll, about when to get in your time card, about when to make sure, make them aware of benefits. One of the unique thing we do is we have day one benefits. People are basically enrolled in a health insurance plan from day one if they want to be there, or they can opt out. So we send reminders about opting out, and just to make sure that they're aware of everything that we're offering, and that they can engage with as they're starting their assignments with us. So I think having that automated, like I said, and not having to rely on a staffing specialist or someone to remember to send a message or an email or a call about, hey, have you, make sure to get your time card in by noon on Monday or whatever it might be. So it's being able to just have that all automated, and like I said, follow up with the personal responses to any concerns or questions has been really great. And it gets, like I said, it gets ahead of a lot of problems. So I think the more of that we can automate and make quick and simple to take care of is just going to give us an advantage in the marketplace of where other employers aren't so engaged, or people feel ignored or abandoned after they either put in their application or get sent on that assignment.
Yeah, Sarah, really awesome points. I was looking at this little animated guy sitting here on the slide and his cell phone, and I got reminded a lot of the population that you work with and some of our other customers work with on the commercial light industrial space, they probably just only have access to a cell phone. So, it's probably important for everything that you're talking about to also be mobile friendly. So anyway, just got reminded of that.
Yeah.
That's
definitely. Yeah. And we had made sure that our application process and everything was mobile friendly, and probably we're moving to make it even more mobile friendly. But yeah, having that all on text messages is great, because even if people, their phone service is off or whatever it might be, you can generally reach people via text message quickly, and they're more likely to respond for sure to a text message than anything else. So yeah, having that all mobile first, beyond mobile friendly, having it mobile first has been key.
Awesome. Well, why don't we keep going on that? So tell us a little bit more about how you're using both Sense Engage and Sense Messaging. Obviously, Sense Messaging is very mobile first, but maybe just take us on a little bit of a journey on how you're using these two products.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, Engage, one of the first journeys we built was our on assignment journey, which, sends check-in messages, as people, it's all triggered on that start date, and that gets put on that assignment in bold. So it sends, 24 hours after their start date, how's your assignment going? A quick little yes or no message, how are things going? Like I said, sends reminders about payroll deadlines, sends reminders about, and we've had to be a little bit flexible with some of those, because everybody's assignment's different, and when they start the assignment is different. So you really have to think through what wording can we use on these messages that get sent out to everybody. That's not going to be too specific. So if somebody, a certain client has a different setup, it's not going to be too confusing. So those things are things to be aware of as you're setting these up. But you can definitely provide enough information, or even just give them the opportunity to ask questions that makes those journeys valuable and gets valuable feedback and gets good information to the branches for them to act on. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing we started with. And we're doing, like I mentioned, the similar things with some clients as far as giving them alerts and surveys. We are also, one of the other fun things we set up initially with Engage was where we send birthday messages to associates on their birthday. They go out at 9 a.m. that morning, and we personalize it so it's got their first name in it. It just says happy birthday from all of us at Penmac Staffing, and with some fun emojis and everything. And some of the feedback we get on that is so fun. Like, not everybody replies, but we get a lot of, oh, thank you so much. Thank you guys for your help. And that's just one little thing that's super easy and quick to set up, but has, I think, gotten us a lot of value and just in goodwill, so to speak. And to do that before, would have been super tedious to send personalized text messages automatically and not even have to think about it. And we also do that on holidays. We'll send out messages to all current active associates the day before a holiday, one, to just wish them well, and also if the branch is going to be closed, or send any reminders about that. And that also has gotten some good feedback of, Happy New Year to you too, that kind of thing. Has been fun to see that as well. So, there's a lot of ways you can do that have fun and kind of, more warm and fuzzy kind of messages, along with the kind of just standard reminders and that kind of stuff. kind of again adds to that personal touch. So we've liked doing that as well. And then the branches use messaging a ton. Like I said, it's easier for them to get a hold of people with messaging. So they're also in there sending individual text messages to an associate, hey, need to let you know your schedule's changed for tomorrow or whatever it might be. That has been super easy for them to communicate with people. And again, like I said, have it logged like logged in bold so you can document, yeah, I sent you a message on yesterday morning that such and such has changed or whatever it might be. So the branches love that tool, and they, it all is integrated. They can pull the person up and quickly send them that message. So that tool has been a huge hit with the branches. They just love to be able to quickly have those conversations.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely surreal to me. You would not believe this, and maybe there are some people in the audience who know this, but 5.5 years ago when we started the company, like, we would just talk about this all day long, that imagine that somebody's birthday is on a Saturday and they will get the message on a Saturday because, your recruiters are not working on a Saturday, but they will still get this message, and how good will they feel? And, obviously automation and what you can do with Sense has come a long way since then. But I can't tell you, even 5 years ago, how those tiny things would just light up people's eyes and say, oh, not only that, you won't believe how much time we're spending right now to send messages to 3,000 of our associates. And then we suddenly found out, well, you don't have to just send happy birthday messages to 3,000 of your associates. You could send it to 100,000 people as long as you had their birthday, because all you do have to just click another button and say include this audience too, and you now suddenly become the company that is on top of mind for people. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And just to sort of build on what Sara was saying, this is sort of one example. I mean this is certainly just a prescriptive example. Your life might look different, your world might look different, but the idea here is that you can see every single thing that happens in your recruiting life cycle or in your recruiting process can be turned into a cadence that can automatically become a touch point that Sara was talking about. So you get somebody on a placement, and maybe here are the 9 things you want to do. Hey, Luke, congratulations. Here is a message from your hiring manager, Brenda, saying you're welcome. Here are some onboarding tasks you need to finish. Then you're sending them a reminder saying, hey, your start date's tomorrow. Here is the building address. Here is the dress code. In the case of light industrial workers, sometimes our customers will send them a photograph of a pair of shoes a week before and say, hey, if you don't wear these, they won't let you in on the factory floor. Or if you're working in a kitchen as a dishwasher or as a chef, you must have non-marking shoes on. Here are links from Amazon and Target on where you can buy them. But they'll tell them that a week in advance, right? So you are basically engaged with this individual right after they've accepted an offer, but before they're starting, to make sure that they don't drop off during this process. Okay, now they've started. And as soon as they've started, you want to make sure that these people are happy, because nothing worse than somebody starting and then figuring out that, hey, day one, I was just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. My work wasn't cut out for me. Manager or the supervisor didn't know I was going to be there, so on and so forth. You do a day one check-in. And when you do a day one check-in and somebody says my day was 1 on a scale of 1 to 5, this is what we were talking about before it becomes into a festering issue. And this guy says, let me just leave this place and go someplace else because I've been only here 1 day. Who cares? You probably pick up the phone immediately and say, we just saw your feedback. That's not the best feedback. What happened? What can we do? How can we help? And those are the kind of companies that people end up staying with. You can also, because we've talked about a lot in this conversation, check in with their manager. Hey, so how is Luke, Brenda, to work for you? So we can also reach out to Brenda and ask Brenda about how Luke's doing, then remind them to submit time cards, then wish them happy birthday, everything we just talked about, and so on and so forth. Now, while you're looking at this journey, you can also probably imagine that half of these things can be done via an email, which is Sense Engage, and half of these things might happen using Sense messaging. So your day one check-in, maybe send that through a text message because you want an immediate response. Somebody telling you 4 days after their first day how their first day was is not helpful. They need to tell you within 5 minutes, hey, I had a great day, or I didn't have a great day. So, this is just one visual representation of what a journey looks like. You can certainly build dozens of these journeys. And then, talking a little bit more about, Sara, I know you're a power user of Sense now. You've also implemented ChatBot, which is somewhat of a newer product. It's been in the market for about 9 months now. I think it's taking the industry by storm, even if I say so myself. But why did you guys implement that? How's it working out? I mean, can you talk to our viewers or our listeners about chatbot, because that's something a lot of people are interested in, but it is a newer product.
Sure. Yeah, we decided to go with chatbot because we wanted to take that engaged journey a little bit to the next step, to be able to gather some more information automatically, and then still pass that information on to the branch or to the staffing specialist or recruiter, but be able to have a little bit more live conversation automatically with people we might be messaging. So yeah, we just launched our first chatbot conversation in early June 7th, I think, the first week of June. And our challenge that we were having was we were getting in all these applicants, but our branches weren't always able to contact them, give them a personal contact, in a timely manner. And of course, we know today, the faster you can get to people, the better. We don't want to let those people slip through the cracks. So our first chatbot sends an automated message to new applicants, generally within an hour after they apply, and basically just ask them some general, very basic questions. First, we confirm if their name is correct, that we've got the correct name with the correct number, because sometimes, of course, there's a typo. So we start with that, and that's that's been valuable. It's pointed out a few situations where people had incorrect information. Then we just ask some simple questions: when are you available to start? What's the best time of day for you to come in for an interview? Just some very basic information that would apply to any type of position, whether it's clerical, professional, industrial, whatever it might be. And then we've set up the journey that so basically it'll exclude, if somebody is applying in person, they're already in our office talking. If the branch sets their status correctly, they won't get that message. So we're not, doubling up on that kind of contact. But for people who are purely online applicants, they just filled out that application online. They're going to get a personalized message from us generally within 15 minutes. We're finding it's coming. And then as soon as that person completes that chatbot conversation, it sends an email alert to the whole branch, that this is an engaged candidate. They get the email that has their name, a link to their Bold profile. Please follow up with this person quickly because they're engaged. So they can click that profile, immediately send them a text message, call, email, do all of the above, and get that person continuing down the process, knowing that they're engaged and ready to go to work. So I took a look at our numbers for June. Out of all the brand new applicants we got in June, 14% of them were placed. But out of those applicants who also were just online applicants that got that chatbot message, 24% of them we were able to place. So that tells me it seems like getting that quick message automatically makes them a little bit more likely that we'll be able to place them. And the chatbot, the other thing I was impressed to see is that the chatbot conversation always ends with can you give us some feedback on how this conversation went? And right now we're at about a 4.6 out of 5. We've had very little negative feedback. Out of multiple hundreds of messages, I think maybe 2 or 3, less than 5, less than a handful of people have rated it as a bad experience. So it's been very impressive. And that's kind of the thing that's always going to happen with anything. So so that's been really good. And the other thing that I think has made it successful is we make it very clear from the beginning that it's an automated chatbot, but we say right off the bat, we're going to send this information along to a staffing specialist who will be in touch with you soon. We make it clear this is just to get the process moving a little faster, and a real person is going to reach out to you soon. So that seems to make people more comfortable with it as well, that we're upfront, that it's an automated chatbot. We've given it its own person, we branded it with our own, we call her Penny Penguin because that's our kind of a little mascot we have. So people seem to engage with her well, and it's been a big success.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. Sara, I saw a couple of other customers try this where they've actually done an A/B test, and they've essentially gone, here is how many people that we convert to placements when they come through a regular channel, and here is how many people we convert when they come via a chatbot. It's amazing to see these numbers. I mean, I don't need to sort of belabor the point here, but if you can improve your sort of higher ratio by 10%, I mean, first of all, that decreases cost per hire, decreases recruiter time, but at the same time is just absolutely adding right away to your bottom line. So yeah, I'm likely to use this statistic with like 50 other people. But I should talk a little bit more about the chatbot itself. I mean, just because it's a newer product, here are some things to keep in mind, right? First of all, a chatbot is recruiting for you 24/7. We have seen this in some industries. This may or may not be relevant to every company, but in the healthcare space, for example, sometimes nurses are getting a break at midnight. That's the only time that they're able to peruse to a website or go to their cell phone and see what else is out there. I want a different job. I want to move someplace else, especially people who are traveling nurses. And they're not going to find a recruiter at that point to talk to them, but they can talk to a chatbot. They can answer all these questions. If the chatbot determines, oh, you're a great candidate for us, the chatbot's going to throw automatic times at you and say, here is when a recruiter can talk to you. And anytime tomorrow, 7 days from now, that works best for you, you can schedule that conversation, right? So you were sitting there having your break at midnight and you were able to advance in this process. And now that you're already intrigued by the position that a company has, you can set up a time that's convenient to you. Number one. Number two, obviously, Sara mentioned this before as one of the ways they delight their candidates, but 100% of the people who apply to you will hear back from your company. I can't tell you how many people we hear back from who tell us, hey, we get emails from candidates all the time that they applied to us and their resume went into a black hole. Nobody ever got back to them. Well, the chatbot's going to get back to them. Whether you want them or not is a different story. And if you don't want them, you could redirect them to your jobs page and say, don't have a job for you that fits right now, but please, keep checking this website over here. Third, the scheduler I talked about, automatically integrated with Google, with G Suite, as well as Microsoft Teams or Office 365 or Exchange. So these meetings are just being put on your recruiters' calendars immediately, and your recruiters can set up how they want it. Hey, I only want meetings to be set up from 9 to 12 in the morning, and the rest of my time is my working time. I also want these to happen in a round robin fashion. So the first meeting goes to recruiter one, the second one goes to recruiter two, so on and so forth, etc. And then the last thing that I think is becoming more and more important in today's landscape is just diversity and inclusion. The chatbot has no bias at all. If any of your recruiters are thinking about a job and saying, well, for this job, I'm not going to talk to a person with this kind of sex or this kind of race or this kind of gender, that doesn't exist with the chatbot. The chatbot's going to talk to every single person. And a lot of our customers report that they're suddenly seeing 30% more of people who have been screened through the chatbot that typically would have been screened out by their recruiters. And now that they've screened in, you already know that these people are qualified. There is no need to have a bias. You just talk to them and see if they can be submitted. So anyway, super excited about that. But Sara, thanks for your insight. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you was, what has your experience been with your field? What's the feedback that you've gotten? What are people saying? What can we do better? What has been delightful? Be awesome to sort of hear that.
Sure. Yeah, adoption with our internal team has been really great. We, like I said, we kind of rolled it out in combination with our switch over to Bold, so they were kind of all in the mode of learning a new tool and learning new things anyway. But the fact that it did a lot of the things that our previous tool didn't, it was an easy sell for sure for our internal team. And it took a little of educating to work with them about how the journeys worked and that this stuff was going to be automated, but they still needed to reply, at the end of the conversation and that sort of thing. Took a little time, but once they got the hang of it, they were thrilled. And I sent you guys some testimonials from people that I think you've got on here that were feedback after the first kind of big email I sent out about this is up and running and it's working, after the first kind of journeys we did. And no other tool I've ever rolled out has gotten this kind of feedback from people out in the field, where we use it all day long, where has this been my whole Penmac life, was one of my favorite comments. It's a game changer. Yeah, the branches love it. They, again, it took a little training, few conversations about exactly how everything worked. But once they understood that we weren't taking everything completely out of their hands, we weren't, replacing them. It was just a tool to make them more efficient and automate the beginnings of conversations and give them actionable information to follow up on. They loved it. They were a huge fan, and to this day, they're asking me what's the next thing we're going to do with Fence. So it's been a huge hit.
Yeah, no, great point, Sara. I mean, I'll touch on something that's a little bit of a controversial topic, but we obviously talk to companies where they're like, hey, will this take my job away? Or, what happened with this automation? And most people have come to realize that, no, this will actually just make you more efficient, because the whole idea is, you get to spend more time talking to an actual
Mhm.
customer or a candidate and convince them to work with each other. You don't need to spend extra time just to ask the same people, hundreds of people, the same 10 questions. Are you authorized to work in the US? Have you ever gotten a DUI? Can you
Mhm.
stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? Can you lift 50 pounds a day? Are you willing to work for $17.22, whatever the case might be, right? I mean, the question is, there is just so much repetitive work in our industry, and that's the part that we're sort of taking out in a consistent fashion, in a delightful fashion, so it actually ups the experience of the end user, but then it just gives you more time to actually end up closing business. I can't tell you the number of companies that have come back to us and told us that their recruiters are now making 20 to 30% more commissions or bonuses or incentives because they're just making more placements. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you so much for sharing all of your experience. I wanted to pause here for a second because as we went along, I was getting a couple of questions for you, but I'll open this up to everybody if they have more questions for you. This is, your moment, I think, to talk to somebody who has been, well, one, a decision maker on bringing the product in, but at the same time also hands-on enough to implement the product. So I think Sara would be able to answer any questions that anybody in the audience have. But a couple of questions that I did get, Sara, and some of them are tactical, but one of them is, how fast is the sync between Avionte and Sense?
Really fast. What we found, it's within 15 minutes is kind of the max time that it takes for us to see those kind of messages logged. We do have it set up so the daily kind of conversations, the one-on-one conversations that our staffing specialists are having with associates, those are logged overnight in a daily diary kind of thing. That's in one, it's logged as one activity in bold, and it's like a transcript. So it's not, and the branches love it that way because they get annoyed when it's 50 million activities logged for the same conversation. So they really like that daily summary. But then for things like the chatbot that needs a quick follow up, or certain journeys or certain alerts, those are logged as different types of activities in bold, and those are seen almost instantaneously within 15 minutes. I've never seen anything like a chatbot transcript take longer than an hour to show up on that associates activity list in bold on their bold profile. So it's very quick. It's not, of course, instantaneous because no integration is truly instantaneous, but it is fast enough to be actionable and valuable, and that's what's really been the priority for us. So it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, just to give you guys a practical example of what Sara was talking about, we absolutely see conversations where people are saying, hey, can you talk next Tuesday? And the guy's like, nope, Tuesday doesn't work. How about next Wednesday? Well, I prefer Thursday. Okay, how about 4 p.m. on Thursday? Well, no, can you do 5 p.m.? I can't do 5. How about Friday? You don't want these 15 conversations to become 15 different notes. I mean,
Mhm.
you might if that's your environment, and you might if you're fine with these many number of conversations. But we're, I think, the only software which will give you the ability to say you could have individual conversations or you could have a daily log. So if your recruiter is going to go back and forth 20 times with somebody during a day, at the end of that day, the 20 times your recruiter went out and the 20 responses that you got in all will be interspersed in a chronological order and will just be written down as one note. So yeah, there might be something to think about. Sara, second question here, and I know you've talked about this a little bit, so totally up to you if you want to add something here or not. But what was the process for rolling out Sense to your team, and how quick was the user adoption? So I know you talked about this, but I don't know if you had any parting thoughts.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add was to have enough people here at corporate on the support team. Like I said, Troy, who's our corporate trainer, who obviously is talking with the branches all the time with support, and then also getting our IT help desk in the loop on how everything works, and they're able now to add new users and answer questions and do some troubleshooting with somebody who doesn't know how to install the Chrome extension or something like that. They're able to help branches on that side. So to have plenty of support across your corporate support team and have everybody engaged with that process, I think is a good thing to do. And then also, yeah, to especially as you're considering doing this, talk with branch managers and what their challenges are, and how explain to them how this tool will be a tool that will help their people take action. And like I said, it's not going to replace anybody or make more work. In fact, it's going to make less work. I think that's another concern, is like, oh, I'm going to have to do another thing or figure out another difficult to use tool. And once they see that it's pretty seamless, and that they it's going to make things quicker and faster and easier for them, and have to log fewer messages and all that, it's really an easy sell. It's just having those conversations and making sure that they understand how the tool actually works, and not some scary picture of what automation might be. The adoption was really quick, and everybody was like you saw, thrilled with the results.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate your time. In the interest of respecting everybody's time, I did have a few more slides to talk about where we are headed from here and what the roadmap of Sense looks like. But I will promise you all, we will send these slides over to you. We will also present these slides here in a couple of weeks at Avionte Connect. So you will hear more about where Sense is headed anyway. But for the moment, just to make sure we respect your time, we're 1 minute from the hour. I'm just going to end by thanking Sara, and Sarah's graciously agreed to add her email over here. If you have any direct questions, if you want to ask her something that can help you make a decision about Sense or any automation platform for that matter, please do that. You're welcome to reach out to her. You're obviously very welcome to reach out to us. We're super easy to find. There's my name and email. But with that, Sara, huge thank you to you. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for talking about your experience with Sense in such great detail. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. And yeah, I'd be happy to talk with anybody about any specific situations or any questions I can answer. So don't hesitate to shoot me an email.